So, oh, there we go. There you go. It's just broken. So this jumble of wires on my desk is basically what I'm going to be living with for a couple of weeks. I've got this problem with my laptop where the underside of it has started to bubble, kind of, come out like this. I noticed it first when it used to be sat on my desk with the lid closed here, and I put it on this riser now to kind of try and keep it a bit cooler, because it seems to have been getting just hot on its own for no particular reason. And I'm leaving the screen open as well to let the fans at the back kind of do their thing, which is a bit frustrating because it acts like a third screen. You can move the mouse cursor like this and it will come onto this screen, but it doesn't matter too much. I don't really use that. But yeah, basically it's very difficult to show, but you can see there's a bit of a, I'm trying to get it here. There is a wobble. It's very difficult to show when it's not flat. I'll show you flat in a second. But basically, this section here has started to kind of go like this. And I think what's happened is that I think there's two batteries directly here. And I think the one on this side has swollen and is now pushing the bottom of the case away. And I've also noticed that some of the keys at the front of the machine are also not quite as, they're just not working quite right. They work most of the time. It's a bit hit and miss, but they're not quite working right. So I wonder if it's sort of pushing the top out as well. So I've got to go to the Apple store today to send it in for repair. Luckily, I'm still covered by Apple Care for a few months, and I bought the extended 3-year one. But yeah, for the moment, it's really frustrating. When it was lying flat on my desk, I noticed that it wouldn't sit on its 4 feet, and it was resting actually on the bottom of the machine instead. I'll try and show that now. Yeah, here's a slightly better angle so you can see it. So it does mean I'm going to be without my main production machine for, they say 7 to 10 days. I'm hoping it's less than that, but Apple have literally just reopened, I think it was last week after lockdown, and there's very few kind of slots. I was able to book one as soon as possible. I was very lucky actually in that yesterday I couldn't get the machine to power on at all for ages, and none of my Thunderbolt dock wanted to work. And oddly, I've seemed to have a problem with this as well. The light doesn't want to come on. And I don't know why that is. It just stopped working last week. It seems to be everything about it is working just fine, except the light doesn't come on. So I need to get hold of Cal Digit about that as well. But my main production machine for the next couple of weeks is actually going to be a Raspberry Pi 4B. This is the 4GB model that came out last year. I know they've just released an 8GB model. But I've got this SanDisk 1TB SSD, which I've dumped my home folder and my Dropbox folder and things like that onto. And I've got this little adapter that converts it from USB-C to just a USB-A style connector. It's still USB 3, but yeah, I've tested that and that works well. This is a dongle for a kind of a handheld keyboard mouse combo, which I'll show in a second. I've got two, I'm not sure if they're mini or micro HDMI to full HDMI cables. So this one's an Amazon one, this one's the official Raspberry Pi one, and then I've got, actually it's not plugged in at the moment. I was having problems with my screens trying to reconnect to my MacBook when I had them plugged in. My screens are connected via DisplayPort. Well, one's DisplayPort, one's mini DisplayPort, but these connect via HDMI, and I was having having difficulty kind of getting it all staying connected properly. So I'm just going to ignore that for the moment. And there's a USB-C power input as well. I've got my keyboard. I got this fairly recently actually. This is a, what is it? Hang on, I can't remember. It's a Mac specific one. Varmilo, I'm not quite sure how you say that. And the model is, where are we? Yeah, it's a VO109 Mac. Not sure what the N stands for. But yeah, it's good. It's a mechanical keyboard with brown switches, and it's really, really nice. But that's just USB. and I've got a USB hub behind here, just underneath my desk, which I can plug straight into here as well, so I can get that. I'm going to use my Bluetooth mouse, which is just my Apple first edition Magic Mouse, which I've had for ages. I've got my Bose QC35 2 headphones. I'm going to use those. Yeah, and obviously my my 2 screens, and my webcam obviously, and hopefully my microphone too. So we'll just kind of see how that all works. But yeah, so that is my setup for the next possibly couple of weeks. So I'll provide an update again soon when I know how well it's going. Here's that little kind of keyboard multi-touch, well, sort of like a trackpad, I guess, kind of thing. It wasn't very expensive. I think it was about sort of £15 or something. And I got it from Amazon. It is a RII. Can't see a model number on there. Yeah, I'll probably link to it in the description. But it's got left and right mouse buttons. You can kind of tap on this, following up and down. It's got some media keys. I haven't had a huge amount of luck in getting the keyboard layout kind of, set right, but actually once you work out where the keys are, it's fine. But yeah, it's been quite handy. Just, you plug that little dongle in the Raspberry Pi, you switch it on, there's a little on button at the top, and it just works straight away. You don't have to do anything else. It's that easy. So yeah, it's been really useful. Okay, so the laptop has gone. It's at Apple now. It was the battery, as I suspected, and they're replacing the keyboard and the battery. It's all like one piece. So that's now gone, and I have now connected up my Raspberry Pi. So we've got network cable. We've got a little adapter from USB 3 Type A, I believe, to a USB-C connector, and that's my SanDisk 1TB SSD. Underneath with that, we've got a USB hub, which is under the desk, and on that I've got my Blue Yeti mic, my webcam, my keyboard, which you can see running off here, and then next to that we've got the HDMI outputs to give me dual screen and the power, and you can see the power is on. It's in the official black and grey Raspberry Pi 4 case as well. The first thing I'm going to do though is I have an old Microsoft wired mouse. I feel like I'm going to have to connect that up because I've been using my Bluetooth mouse, and you seem to have to click way over here in order to get it to kind of register a click, and it's like it has difficulty understanding which is left and right, because there's no physical buttons. It's kind of, I don't know what it is, switches in the inside or something. So that's going to drive you a bit mad. And also it just detected this as a generic like 104 key keyboard, but the problem was because I'm used to a Mac setup, the @ symbol and the quote marks were around the wrong way, which is a classic one. But I noticed that whenever I tried to change this, it would reset the mouse to setting the cursor way too fast. So I'm not used to the cursor kind of darting around like this and barely moving it, and it's just going a bit crazy. So I'm going to try a wired mouse instead. But I have got my headphones connected, and I will try those in a moment. Okay, that is working much better now. It's not darting all over the screen, and it just seems to be much, I don't like all the wires, but yeah, that's all right. Yeah, when you get used to Apple's less wires, no wires, everything's one type of connector. Once you get used to it, it's actually really good. I can't stand wires. I mean, they have their place, just not on my desk. Okay, I've been using this for a little while now, and I had the little temperature thing flash up in the corner of the screen, so it's saying it was getting too hot. So I put the temperature monitor in the taskbar, which I've pinned to the bottom just to make it slightly more kind of dock-like, and I've taken the cover off. It just snaps off. You don't have to take out any cables or anything like that, it just pulls off. I might get, I think there's a fan hat for this, and I might get one of those as well if it arrives sort of quickly enough. I've also disconnected the second screen just to see if that makes any difference on the speed of the machine. That's definitely the thing I've noticed, is that, I mean, obviously my MacBook's very fast, it's all solid state and everything, so it's not really a comparison, but I've noticed that, even just loading a single web page seems to be quite slow for this. And maybe it's not its intended purpose, but from my understanding, you could use a Raspberry Pi 4 B especially as a a small desktop replacement, and I'm not trying to do anything particularly taxing with it. I've literally got one program open, if you could consider this the terminal another program, I guess. But so far it's interesting. Everything works on my SanDisk. I can access all my files. I made sure I had the right permissions to do that beforehand. So I think what I need to do is I've opened up a few browser tabs now. I'm sort of ready to start doing some stuff in the browser, and I think I'll just kind of see how I get on. Okay, another slight issue. My headphones do actually connect, but they don't have any Bluetooth services, it says, for the Raspberry Pi to use, and I'm not quite sure what that is. I've had a look and it seems that other people have had a similar issue, but I need to work out what it is. Worst case scenario, I can actually plug it in. There's like a 2.5mm to 3.5mm headphone cable, so I might end up using that because they are rather good, and you can still use the noise cancelling and everything when they're plugged in and everything. In fact, you can switch the noise cancelling off when they're plugged in, I think. So yeah, I'll do that. But I've got Apple Music, which is what I use, running in the web browser, because that all kind of works there. But I would like to use these. They are good. Ooh, it is early. It's just gone 7 in the morning. Although my Raspberry Pi says it's 11 minutes past 6, not quite sure what that is. Anyway, it was insanely hot in here yesterday. The temperature outside was like 31 degrees Celsius. So it just got very, very hot in my office. I've now opened up all the windows and doors and got kind of the cool air being blown in by this pretty powerful Honeywell fan, but it did mean that I was getting quite a few issues with heat on the Raspberry Pi, even though it wasn't really doing very much. I'm not quite sure what that is. I have got this great big heat sink as well on it that I got, which covers, the various sort of larger chips, I guess. And that was something I ordered when I bought the thing and the case and everything. But I have ordered, I believe it's the Argon 1 case, which has active and passive cooling, and it's meant to be very good for keeping the Pi cool. Plus it's a pretty good looking case. I think it looks a bit more like a desktop computer sort of a case, I guess, at least for the Pi anyway. So once that comes, I'll be pleased. It was out of stock at the place where I usually buy Pi stuff from, the Pi Hut, but it was on Amazon for just a few pounds more, and once you factor in postage and shipping and stuff, so it was actually it wasn't too bad a price. So wait for that to come, and hopefully that will help with the heat issues. Hey, so this is a weird issue. I know you can use Apple Music on the web, and that's how I intended to kind of use everything. I couldn't get my headphones to work, so I did plug it in with the cable that comes with it, and whilst it does work, I can play a YouTube video, I can hear it out of my headphones now. Apple Music just refuses to work, and I get this error whenever I click play, failed to load because no supported source was found. Apparently it's a DOM exception error, in that there's a promise, the promise is fulfilled if the playback is completed, if playback actually happens, but because playback isn't happening, the promise isn't fulfilled, and you get this DOM exception. And it seems to be really a JavaScript error as opposed to anything else. Apparently it will work. I've just had a look on the Apple forums, and apparently it will work under under Firefox, but not in Opera and Chrome, and I'm using Chromium. I suspect it has something to do with DRM or something like that. But I did have Firefox on this machine, but I didn't want to use it, even though I've been a Firefox user for like the last year up until recently. I didn't want to use it just because it was so much slower than Chromium, so I'll keep plugging away at it. Otherwise, I'll be using my phone for music. Okay, so what I thought I'd do is test the microphone input. I've got a podcast recording, pressingmatters.fm, happening tomorrow, and I've got my Blue Yeti here, and I just want to make sure it actually works. So I've installed Audacity, which I have used but not for a long time, and I've set the microphone input and the output as both the Yeti stereo microphone, because it's USB, but you can monitor yourself by plugging in underneath, which is what I've done. This is running to my headphones. I've never done this before, but I thought I'd give it a go. I couldn't hear anything at first, and I realised then I actually need to turn the volume up, and you can see there the volume is for the headphones and not for the microphone. So let's give it a quick test. This is a test of my microphone. That looks hopeful. Okay, and whilst you weren't being able to hear that, I did. I heard it out of my headphones. Great, so I'm ready to record my podcast tomorrow. Well, I didn't get a huge amount done today. I'm finding the Pi quite difficult to work with. Even using just a browser with a few tabs open, I'm finding it's really slow, difficult to type on. I was fiddling around with things like kind of overscan for the HDMI so that the picture actually kind of fit the screen properly and stuff like that. And I managed to get everything kind of looking the way I wanted. I tried a Zoom call as well, but that was it just didn't want to work. Like, everything worked, but a Zoom call didn't work. So I could speak into my mic would come through, the person on the other end of the call could hear me, they could see me on the webcam, although that slowed down the Pi dramatically. You know, when you've got the other person on your screen and you've got you in like a picture-in-picture from your webcam. But for some reason my microphone just didn't want to go through. But even though I could, you know, get Audacity working and everything, as you kind of saw. But the biggest issue was I just totally broke the Pi earlier. Kind of. Anyway, my Argon 1 case arrived, which is very good. So you've got these kind of pads here, which are like heat sinks that kind of sit on top via, you can see one here, there's one on the Pi, stuck to the Pi, like these, I can't remember what they're called, but you know, they're like these little pads that go between the chips and the case here. You can see this sort of foot here, which is attached to the case, and that makes the case act as a huge heat sink. And you've got this fan here, which is attached, and then this runs into the GPIO pins, and then you've got this here which plugged into the side of the Pi. So basically what you do is you kind of, you're essentially extending these outputs from the Pi to the back of this case, so all your connectors on the back, which I didn't realise when I bought it, but actually it's really good. It comes with a little screwdriver and everything. But the problem is that when I was putting the case together, I didn't realise that, here's the bottom of the case, I didn't realise there was this hole for the SD card, and the SD card was already in the Pi, and I put it in, I put this on top, and what I didn't realise is this crimped my SD card and broke it. I don't know how well you can see that, but my SD card is now flexing. So, oh, there we go. There you go. It's just broken. Yeah. Can I get in on that anymore? Possibly not. But anyway, I tried to boot the Pi and it just said that there was a boot error. And yeah, I'm guessing I just kind of tore through the flash memory that was on the thing. Anyway, I've got another SD card. I've got several, you know, kind of. This is a 32 gig card. This was I think this was a 16. Yeah, it was a 16 gig card. So this is a 32. So what I'll do is I've got a Raspberry Pi 3B that I can use. I've got a Raspberry Pi Zero as well. I will use those to get a disk image of Raspberry Pi OS onto here, and then I'll kind of start again with this case, knowing now how it all goes together. Feel a bit silly really, but never mind, I can kind of do it. But I think what I've discovered is actually I'm spending more time trying to get it all working than I am actually working, like actually using it, which is a bit of a shame. I kind of feel like I would have been better off like trying to buy a second-hand like Windows laptop and putting Linux on it, like a full version of like Ubuntu or something on it. But never mind. Anyway, that's it. I will update tomorrow. Okay, so it's another day and I'm attempting to put my Raspberry Pi in this case today. So the problem I had was that I had spare SD cards after snapping one yesterday, but I don't have a machine to get the Raspberry Pi OS image onto the SD card. So I thought, well, I must be able to do it somehow. And I thought, well, what I'll do is I'll take my, I took my Raspberry Pi Zero, I took the SD card out of that and put that into my Raspberry Pi 4 because I've got all of that connected up to my screen and mouse, keyboard and everything. It's just easier. And I love that you can just do that. But I forgot it had Raspbian Lite on it just because I'm using it as part of a Raspberry Pi doorbell project that I'm just building in my spare time whenever I want to. And because obviously it's low powered, so you know, it kind of made sense. So then I had to learn how to write a disk image to it. So I used wget to download the image from the Raspberry Pi OS website, and then I unzipped it and then used DD to image it to a USB drive, and I've got a little like USB SD card reader which I was able to use. And then once that had done, I shut it down, I took the SD card out, I put it over here by the Raspberry Pi Zero, and then I took the other one out of the SD card reader, put it in here, and it booted. So that's great. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take all this apart and put it in the case properly. Okay, I'm just going through the process of installing software again, starting with Audacity. But I've put this temperature monitor up in the corner as I did before, and it's running about 20 degrees cooler, maybe a little bit more than it was prior to running the Argon case. And I read in the manual that when it gets up towards like 60 degrees, it's only like 10%, the fan is only 10% on. So I imagined that's the little thermal pads heat sinking to the case, which is actually bringing it down by a considerable amount. I'll see what it jumps up to when I use you know, Chromium with a whole bunch of tabs open. But so far that's very impressive, and if I needed to get more power out of it, I suppose I could overclock the Pi whilst also keeping the temperature down. So something to think about. So I was just watching a YouTube video and the whole machine just, it didn't switch off, it had a black screen, and you can see it starting back up again now. It just had a black screen and the red light was still on, and luckily on this Argon 1 case there's a power button at the back, so I pressed and held it for 5 seconds. The light went off, so I pressed it again and it switched back on. But it is quite hot to the touch. I mean, I don't know if it says it's 50 degrees, which is much cooler than yesterday. But I'm not sure. There was an Argon 1, I can't find it now. It was in the, it was on the home screen, or not home screen, it was on the desktop when I added that software, the Argon 1 software, which it asks you to install. But I'll have to try and have a look and see if the fan is kicking in, see if I can switch it on manually or something. But yeah, I don't want it turning off if, you know, it can't play a YouTube video. I didn't have that problem yesterday, and you would have thought it would have been improved. Okay, it's a few days later and I've been working with the Raspberry Pi with varying levels of success. So I finally obviously got it into the case, and it's warm to the touch, which is good because it means it's, you know, sinking the heat away from the board itself and into the case. And it would seem to be running pretty hot, and I think it's because the room was hot. Last week was very hot. It's only 18 degrees in the room at the moment, so it's actually quite cool in here, where it was up to 30, even 34 degrees Celsius one day. So this, and obviously any machinery in here, was getting pretty warm, and I need to address that as a larger thing in the office. But it has been running much cooler. I've got several tabs open. Been working away on various things in Chromium, and it's running at 43, 42 degrees Celsius at the moment. The fan hasn't kicked in. I did change configuration. It comes with a configuration tool, which annoyingly they stick on the desktop. I would prefer it was in, like, you know, the sort of the programs menu, applications menu, under sort of, you know, something here, accessories or something. But they have a configuration, and I changed the settings so that it kicked in about 50 degrees Celsius. So I think it was about 55 or 60 was the default, and this seemed to work much better. It seemed to be kicking in more often, but it did seem to be keeping it cooler quicker, and like the heat didn't escalate to a point where it really needed to work quite hard to kind of bring the temperature down. So I'm pleased with that. But overall, I would say that for my job, it is not possible to use a Raspberry Pi 4. This is the 4GB model, using and running the latest version of Raspberry Pi OS, used to be called Raspbian, as your main desktop replacement. I think it's just not powerful enough. I mean, obviously it's meant to be a cheap single board computer, and it's amazing what you can do with them outside of, you know, using it as a desktop replacement. But I just don't think I can do it. I find that web browsing is slow. It's sort of, it feels unresponsive, like you're using an old slow computer. Using YouTube is fine, but it's choppy. It always defaults to a lesser quality, like 480p, and never up to like 1080p. I don't know if that's intentional or not. Obviously, I have seen there are video editors on the Raspberry Pi, but I can imagine that's like pulling teeth. I've got an iPhone, I've got an iPad, you know, editing videos on those using iMovie is a much more satisfying experience. The kind of, I think the barrier to entry to a lot of people using it as some kind of a thing is that ultimately an iPad, which yes costs a bit more money, can do you know what this does, and far more, and far quicker as well. And to me, I've got an Apple Bluetooth keyboard, which I replaced that with this one. I would pair that to my iPad, and it's just the basic iPad as well. It's a few years old now, but it's just the basic one. It's, you know, what is it, like £300 or something. So it's not like an iPad Pro or, you know, one of the later ones, and it's the base model as well. I think I'd have a better experience doing that and doing all kinds of things with it. So yeah, however, I do love Raspberry Pis, and I love them because they are very utilitarian. So I have this connected to normally this is the one that I use behind my TV in my office, which is behind me. And I would have this connected to my media center, so I can turn around and I can watch, you know, like YouTube or videos from off my home media center, which kind of supplies media to the whole house, or listen to music from it, or anything really. So I love it for that because it's got this kind of function. You could have it, you know, running daemons. You could have it running, you know, your printer. I've seen people use this as an AirPlay print server, which would be quite useful, because then I wouldn't have to come in here and print stuff. Could have the printer somewhere else in the house, in an understairs cupboard or something, with this connected to it, and have it always on. And if I need to print anything, I can just print it straight from there, anywhere in the house, like from the iPad or, you know, my MacBook or wherever. I'm working on a Raspberry Pi doorbell, which I've mentioned before, and I could use that. I mean, writing Python and getting that to run and everything is absolutely brilliant. I've got a Raspberry Pi 3 that runs behind my TV in my living room, which I use for retro gaming, and that's a lot of fun, and it runs just fine. In fact, it runs everything up to an N64, Nintendo 64 just fine. And some games are a bit choppy, but most of them are absolutely fine. And I'm keen to see how they kind of smooth out, how the gameplay smooths out if I was to use this Raspberry Pi 4 instead. So I might do that as well. But yeah, so far I'm really, really pleased with everything here, and it's a great bit of kit, but in my opinion, it's just not a desktop replacement. If you're used to using another computer, it might be, I guess. Or maybe I'm just not as au fait with Linux as I thought I was. But anyway, I think this will conclude my week. I'm hoping that tomorrow my laptop will be ready for collection. So that's it. Hope you enjoyed this short, choppy, random video.